Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me down there in Tequila, Georgia, my good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, is here. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back with you. Wow. I just have to say, wow. That was like one of the greatest college football Saturdays I've witnessed in years, to be honest. It was just nonstop action. It was just compelling and rich, as Ron Burgundy would say. And it was just amazing. I know it wasn't as great when you're part of the madness, but how was your Saturday, sir?
You know what's funny? I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. Like, I think the results were crazy, but like Vanderbilt, Arkansas was pretty crazy. Georgia, Auburn was pretty brutal to get through. I think you look at Ohio State, Iowa was pretty brutal. Penn State, UCLA, Miami, super late. I did not stay up for that one. I fell asleep. Washington, pretty boring. Pretty just the better team won. Minnesota just does what they're supposed to do. Ole Miss just kind of ends that game
Debbie
early.
Downer over here. What is this? This is an action-packed day.
Well, here's it's not real. Well, it wasn't. So you look at it. So Florida State, Clemson. Clemson was up 23-7 at the half. Ole Miss was up 24-3 at the half. You just go up and down. Like Texas A&M was up 24-0 at the half against Mizzou. I mean, what I'm saying is like the results were absolutely crazy, but the games themselves, the Tennessee Volunteers were in hell. That was a hellish game on Saturday night. Didn't enjoy it, Matt Green. I don't know. I think the results by and large were very shocking, but I think the games themselves, outside of Vandy, Alabama, were not great. Like, I don't think they were great games. I think Cal blowing it late against Miami and Miami coming back was great, but I don't think the games themselves were great. We're going to have a lot, like this weekend in particular. This weekend in particular is going to be much better. This weekend slate is going to be much better. They're going to be closer. They're going to be high octane. There's going to be a lot of stakes involved. I think this week will be like Mizzou, Texas A&M was awful. Like that was a terrible way to spend 3.5 hours. Gigantic waste of time. Ole Miss, South Carolina, gigantic waste of time.
Yeah, I mean that's college football.
If you're not a fan of those teams, I should clarify.
There's going to be blowouts, whatever. But I respectfully disagree, sir. There were some amazing college football games. Not every college football game is pretty, but they're all amazing. A close game where the fans storm the field. We saw multiple ones on Saturday. That's all you need to know. We saw a goalpost end up in a river. That's how you know it was a good Saturday.
Well, hold on. Give me 3 great games from Saturday. Give me 3 great games from Saturday.
Vanderbilt, Arkansas.
That's one.
Vanderbilt, Alabama was a great game. Tennessee, Arkansas, great game.
No, it wasn't.
Miami, great game.
Okay, that's 2.
Minnesota, USC, great game. Did you watch the game? That was a great game.
Are we saying great?
It's
great
college football, man. We saw a rematch of the national championship, Washington and Michigan on Saturday night. We saw Texas A&M knock off a top 10 opponent. Like, just do whatever they wanted to them. It was a great Saturday, sir. I'm sure when your team loses, it doesn't feel that good, but trust me, from someone whose team was not a part of any of the upset chaos, just soaking it all in. It was an amazing Saturday from a neutral perspective.
I guess. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not salty about the Tennessee loss. It's just more that I think the results were the crazy thing. My belief is the games this weekend will be huge and will be great and close and just some heavyweight battles that I think we're going to come back on next Sunday's show and be like, wow, that felt like a playoff weekend. This was just surprising. This was a surprising weekend in terms of the final results, but I think the games themselves were not great for by and large. Throwing Tennessee, Arkansas in there is just absolute no class from you, Matt Green. No class. I mean, it was whatsoever.
A top 5
no
upset.
Class.
Like that's a huge game. A game that came down to the final play. Like that's what college football is all about. You want that drama. The drama is what we tune in for every Saturday, sir. And you were thinking this as you rested your head on your pillow on Saturday night. without seeing how things unfolded in Cal Berkeley, and that was absolutely insane. Cam Ward, we'll get into it, but it was a wild game that was clearly a great game. Like, had the drama, had the comeback, had the points, had the Heisman moments. It had everything.
Well, let's get into the first one that the people want here on this very program. Tennessee falls flat in Fayetteville, loses to Arkansas 19-14. Tennessee falls to 4-1. Arkansas moves to 4-2 on the season. Like you said, they stormed the field after this one, which I think if you're a Tennessee fan, weirdly enough, you feel good about. Like when a team storms the field after beating you, it's a good feeling because Alabama has had the field storming happen so much to them. There is something to be said. Like Georgia's in this category, but Tennessee's made it, man. If you're looking at a spin zone here, Tennessee now being a storm the field type team.
It's been a long time since anyone stormed a field on the Bulldogs.
But what I'm saying is it's good. Like when Georgia drops a game, or if someone beats Georgia, like there's an upset here. Like it feels good if the team like that's the only good thing about a loss is if they do storm the field after and celebrate it like that. That means your program's in really good shape. So I think that's something to take solace in is that they celebrated.
You'd rather them storm to the parking lot in the late third quarter. I think that's.
I don't disagree. I'm just trying to find some silver linings here because it was rough reading the message boards and reading all the reactions in the post game and reading so many different pieces from the good folks here locally and listen to the post game calls from radio shows. Shout out to friend of the pod Tony Basilio and listening to his post gamer on Saturday night into the early morning. My wife and I listening to that on the way to the park with Khaleesi the dog this morning. I mean, it was there was so much. So let's dive into actually what happened here, Matt Green. So Tennessee 14, Arkansas 19. What did you see before I dive into what I took away from this game, Matt Green?
So there's a lot to unpack from this game. Arkansas previously lost the 18 straight to opponents in the top 5 coming into this game. This looked like it was going to be a typical 2024 Arkansas game early on. Like I think they basically dominated the first half. They outgained Tennessee 216-51, 13 first downs to just 4, basically 2-1 time of possession, and they had 3-0 to show for it on the scoreboard. And it's like that probably should have been at least 13-0. There was the one Taylon Green play made going to his left where the just drops a dime like a 40 yards into the end zone and the dude drops it and then they missed the field goal before the half. So they just I know Tennessee obviously got those stops on 4th down, but like they were dominating this game between the 20s, which is basically what they've done every game, and then not dominate on the score line. And then you saw Tennessee come out and second play of the third quarter, Dylan Sampson with that long run, then they punch it in. It felt like that typical game where the better team doesn't bring their A game, and then you didn't put them away. So now they've run 1 or 2 good plays, and all of a sudden they're beating you. And then Tennessee runs it on that next drive to go up 14-3, and it's like, okay, Arkansas gave them their best punch in the first 2 quarters and had nothing to show for it. And then they basically couldn't cover Armstrong, number 2 out wide. I feel like his big plays in the passing game really brought Arkansas back. I was commenting like kind of early mid third quarter. It's just like it felt like there was no energy in that stadium. Like Andrew Armstrong, dude's just a freak. Go-to guy for Arkansas. He made a lot of big plays down the field. Taylon Green, and the biggest thing that Arkansas did in this game that they didn't do in all of their other games this season, they didn't turn the ball over. And that's, I think, what the biggest difference was. But obviously, you look at Tennessee, I think you just have to be kind of worried about their offense. Do you want to comment on what I've said about Arkansas and we can go back and forth?
Well, I think to your point, in the group chat, one of the things as I'm writing and taking notes with, I thought Arkansas they got away with some stuff because that first drive where they take it was basically a page out of Kentucky's book in the first half of playing keep away and sustaining drives, and Tennessee could not get on the field on third down, and the middle of the field was open. So the linebackers really struggled in coverage. Peely and Carter and Thielander and company were not good in over the middle and in coverage. That's where Arkansas attacked Tennessee's defense, was over the middle with some crossers, and Tennessee just did not have answers for that early. But by and large, you didn't run on them outside of Braylon Russell with 2 big runs at the end of the game to put them in position to take the lead on that, where Tennessee lets them score on that play to get in. So Tennessee got the ball back with a chance to win. They didn't run the ball well at all against Tennessee. And Taylor Green, like you said, did not fumble, did not throw any picks. Arkansas did not have any turnovers in this game, but they did have turnover on downs, multiples. And they had the field goal after that long drive, and to kick a field goal on the 2-yard line on that, when you're a 2-touchdown dog and you opt to kick a field goal on that kind of drive against Tennessee, I was like, oh, Tennessee got away. Tennessee's very, very fortunate. And I think that's a bad omen for Arkansas, and Arkansas to get to the point where they're only 3 points there for that whole half. And Tennessee, I understand, shut out for the first time in the first half in the Heupel era. They get the ball back to start the second half. I was just like, oh, this is a recipe for disaster for Arkansas. And Sam Pittman going to the locker room where he's like, I'd rather be us than them. Where I was like, what are you talking about? This is a terrible spot to be in against Tennessee right now, because Tennessee just got shut out. Your defense played exceptionally well against this group, and you're up 3-0. That's all you got to show for it. You won the time of possession. You really outplayed Tennessee in a lot of ways, and you're only up 3-0. I mean, I would be terrified right now. And then of course
you did
Tennessee
outplay them, so I mean there is that.
Right, but Tennessee scores 2 touchdowns. Dylan Sampson gets rolling in the third quarter, like you said. And I thought the game was I thought it was over. I looked at this where it was just going to go the way of Tennessee, Oklahoma 2 weeks prior, where you just escape, you sit on it, you get your 2 touchdowns in, you're up, you're comfortable, and that's it. And that's just not what happened. And they did not go away to their credit. Taylor Green gets banged up. He leaves the game. Tennessee lost some bodies in this one. But to your point, to what you've said thus far, I was surprised that Tennessee was just not able to put this team away in the second half. And when they got that lead and they had that just terrible first half offensively where they barely had the ball, didn't do anything when they had the ball. And I don't know. I was very, very surprised that they let this team back in the game after it went up 14-3, because based on what I've seen from this team to this point, I thought Tennessee was going to be able to build off what they did in Norman 2 weeks prior off the idle week, and they did not. That was one of the more stunning parts of this game, was Tennessee not being able to close out. But they also asked way too much of their defense. You should win most games if you're Tennessee, where your defense only gives up 19 points. They don't give up any touchdowns in the first half. They don't also give up really any touchdowns in this game outside. That last touchdown by Arkansas, Tennessee lets them score. The defense lets them score. So the defense did everything that was asked of them outside of limiting some chunk plays, like you talked about with Arkansas's receivers and stuff a little bit, but they still clamped them down. They still came to play when they got inside the 20, when things got tight in the red zone, and made some big plays when they had to. And this Tennessee defense was more of the bend don't break that we've seen in years past than this year. But they were all over the place. I mean, the only thing that really bothered me was James Pierce getting held all the time. There were some just egregious non-holding calls on this Arkansas offensive line that Pierce was just getting killed. There was one egregious one to Pierce, one to Bailey, but they weren't called, and ultimately that's not the reason Tennessee lost. But those little things can drive you nuts, because they had no answers for James Pierce, who had played his best game this season for the Vols. But that's my starting place here for this game, Matt Green.
Yeah, James Pierce definitely made a lot of plays on Taylor Green, but I think the plays that Taylor Green was able to make in the passing game, I think, is probably what was the most surprising, because they did kind of take his legs away for the most part in this game. But they did let him score after they drove all the way down the field, though. Malachi Singleton, well, I guess they didn't drive all the way down. That was one of the bold calls, because once once Taylon Green got hurt, I was basically like, there's no way they can move the ball. This Malachi Singleton, with all due respect to this guy, like, he did not look like an SEC caliber quarterback. Like, he just, I don't know. He looked scared for his life, running around back there. Like, don't know what kind of mental clock he had. His feet were just chopping. He was just ready to take off at any second. Those first couple drives he was in. But then I think obviously Arkansas made the right decision because it worked out. It was bold because so late in the game, like, they could have gone for it on that fourth down deep in their own territory, but they did punt it away. They trust their defense, and that was the game changer, because then the defense got another stop and they were able to just have a short field for Malachi Singleton and that offense, and they busted some big plays on the ground, and you knew, like, that's how it was going to have to happen. It was going to have to be on the ground that they're going to have to make some plays, and they finally did. And also, can we talk about going full Nick Fairley over here? What that was a little dirty hit on Taylon Green. What did you think? That was like Tom Brady, the Tom Brady injury right there. Like, I don't know. That was a little questionable to me.
I don't know. I think it's just I can't get in the mind of Omar Norman-Lott. I don't know. I think it was unfortunate, but I don't know. I think it's a football play, and I don't know what he was thinking. What he was trying to get. You're trying to get
classless organization. That's what this is.
No, I mean, I think Omar, who is a great player for Tennessee, I don't know. I think a lot of that stuff's really overblown, and I don't know. I think he's trying to make a play and bring down Taylon Green. I don't know. I think it's just hard to bring guys down, and things could get awkward and fall awkward, and trying to. I don't know. I can't get in the mind of course. Omar Norman.
I'm half joking, but that was a pretty bad hit, and Taylon Green obviously tried to play and he wasn't able to continue, but so hopefully that's not serious, and they have him moving forward. That's really going to change the prospects of what Arkansas can be the rest of the way. But this Tennessee passing game, I feel like just doesn't have much of a rhythm. Like, you saw, it felt like all the chunk plays in this game came on the ground. Like, I'm not sure what to make of Tennessee's offense to this point, because Arkansas's defense hasn't been anything amazing. Like, so until that amazing throw he made on that final drive, the longest pass play Tennessee had in that game was 17 yards. So I think that's one thing that's really concerning with how good this defense looks so far, is the offense just doesn't really match it.
Well, that's where, like, a lot of the infighting is coming in with Tennessee this weekend following this game. Is that
here, before I let you get onto this, can I get into the Green Line stat of the week first?
Yeah.
So this is the Green Line stat of the week, and it's about that Tennessee offense. So one of these Tennessee fans, they're going to listen to me, sir. I know some stuff. I know some things and some stuff. I've seen some college football. Stats versus the cupcake team, sir. Just throw them out. They don't mean anything right now. Tennessee on the season, averaging 63.6 points per game in the non-con. Now 18 points per game against SEC competition. One of those non-con is NC State, but I think we've seen NC State dropped another one this weekend. So a couple other ones. Missouri averaging 44.5 in the non-con, 21 versus Power 4 competition. Auburn averaging 59 in the non-con, 15.5 versus Power 5 competition. So that's the one thing that's concerning me about the Tennessee offense, is we haven't really seen them do it against those teams that actually have a pulse so far this season. But I'll give the floor to you, sir.
I think that's fair. I mean, there's just so much going on. So, like, I think this Saturday is going to be huge for Tennessee. Now you're in do or die mode. You get Florida, who's quietly won 2 straight and are feeling a little bit better about where they're at right now, beat UCF this weekend. You get Bama 2 weeks after this game, and you get 4 straight home games, which is huge. Heupel's lost 1 home game since the start of the 2022 season. They've been really good at home. They're a much better home team than they are a road team. Tennessee had a loss like this at South Carolina in 2022, where just inexplicable implosion on the road. He lays an egg there. Heupel lays an egg in 2023 at Florida. Florida is just not a good team. You go down there and it's just a disaster class. I think this could be that, where Tennessee just had everything went wrong night in Fayetteville, like you said, like we opened this show. Mizzou had a house of horrors in College Station. You look at Miami, almost. It took a crazy effort to come all the way back and win that one. You saw so many different programs, top programs, go down all across, not just the SEC, but college football as a whole. Georgia's already dropped a game. Alabama goes to Vanderbilt and loses a game. That's a much worse loss than Tennessee going to Fayetteville and losing to Arkansas. But I think there are some real concerns here. And for me, it's so complicated because I think everybody wants to pin these early struggles on one thing. So there's a lot of folks who are like, we haven't been the same since Alex Golesh left to become the head coach at South Florida. He was the OC in 2022 and 2021. There's been a drop-off. Some of it's just like, okay, maybe Hendon Hooker was a lot more special than we gave him credit for, and that he was just a different kind of quarterback. Because Joe Milton, a lot of people were frustrated with Joe Milton, and that was the reason Tennessee's offense took a huge decline last year. Now we're finding out this year, maybe it wasn't all Joe Milton. Maybe there was a lot more at play. Maybe there is something more of an issue with Tennessee over the last 2 years with this offense. Against good teams. Have good teams figured out the wrinkles of this Heupel offense here in the SEC? I can't speak to that for sure, but I can say, because I mean, they've had these blowout wins. Like, Tennessee is a really good team at home. They just went on the road and won in Norman 2 weeks ago. They blew out, like you said, NC State, who was ranked at the time and was stacking Tennessee in the 3-3-5, where Tennessee struggled with a little bit when opposing defenses have done this year. They have had some success there with 12 personnel. They didn't do much 12 personnel on Saturday, but that goes back to what another big question I have is just Nico did not have a good game. Running out of bounds in the last play of the game was not good. Similar to what Joe Milton did against Ole Miss in 2021. It's not good. Nico struggled to make plays. He also struggled to run when there was lanes to run. That's what Hendon Hooker was just so good at, is when things just weren't there downfield, whatever, then you take off and just get the first down, live to fight another day. Nico keeps his eyes up and he keeps looking for that perfect throw. And I mean, like you said, that throw on that last drive was just why he has number 1 overall pick potential. It's like he has that in him, and we've seen those kind of things. You just need more and more of those, especially on the road and hostile environments in the SEC. I think Heupel's clock management down the stretch was awful, where you lose 18 seconds down, not calling a timeout, and you didn't need to burn that. And that was just something that has to get cleaned up. Penalties is a huge part of it. They're behind the sticks. Like, Tennessee is just shoots themselves in the foot all the time on the road here with penalties. A lot of false start stuff. Linemen downfield in the first play of the game. There's just a multitude of reasons. They couldn't establish the run early in this game until Dylan Sampson really broke out in the third quarter. The offensive line was awful. That was a part of it. Lance Hurd and John Campbell were the two poorest graded offensive linemen for Tennessee in this game as your 2 premier tackles. So it's hard to have an efficient passing offense when your tackles play like that and have that kind of rough night in Fayetteville. I think Cooper had a really good game at center. I think the interior of the offensive line was good, but I think the tackles really, really struggled in pass pro, which, okay, like if you're a quarterback in your 6th start on the road and you're dealing with that kind of pressure, I think he has 8 sacks in the last 2 games. Nico does. So, I mean, that's not great for young development, and that slows the passing game and everything else when you're getting hit that much. The receivers aren't getting open. The receivers are really struggling to this point in the year, and now Brew and Squirrel are both banged up leaving that game. We'll see what their status is for Saturday. You really need them both. Chris Brazzell hasn't been what you expected coming in out of the transfer portal from Tulane. Dante Thornton's been your best receiver this year, and he had another good game, but you need more out of him too. The tight ends didn't give you really anything in this game, and they've been critical the early part of this season. Kitzelman misses one late that could have been huge for Tennessee on that final drive. So this is a broad way of me saying, like, I think Tennessee has real problems on offense, but I think it's really hard to pinpoint what exactly it is. And I also just don't want to overreact too much, because this team is so good at home and has been good at flipping the script and just flushing these horrible road blunders, whether it's at South Carolina, at Florida, whatever, and then coming home to Neyland Stadium and just being like, all right, flush it. That was awful. That can't happen again. And getting back on track. So I think it's a huge weekend. You can't drop this game against Florida. You still have everything in front of you, which is what Heupel talked about. It was a rough night, but it wasn't just one person. It was rough for a lot of different people. And I have a lot of questions about where Tennessee goes, but they wasted another all-time great effort from this defense, where you should be able to win games where your defense gives up less than 20 points. When you're Tennessee and you have this offense, this firepower and everything else. Usually if your defense holds an SEC team on the road to less than 20 points, you're going to win the football game more often than not. And Tennessee did not do that, and that's why I was pretty surprised down the stretch that Tennessee was not able to do that. But there was just a myriad of reasons as to why Tennessee did not deserve to win that game, and why I was surprised at how they came out. That's Heupel's first loss coming out of a bye week at Tennessee. I don't know. I was surprised in a multitude of ways, but I also think the defense is going to keep them in every game this season. Like, this defense is still one of the best in the country. Defensive line is still one of the best. They're not going anywhere, but I do think the offense has real problems that I am concerned are not going to be easy to fix in the middle of the year.
So one thing I found interesting, a little behind the curtain here for the listeners, not calling you out by any means, but I found it interesting. In this game that was very tight, you sent me a text message at some point about Georgia, and I'm just thinking, like, Tennessee's in a rock fight right now, and he's texting me about Georgia. I don't think Chase Thomas's head's in the game right now. He's looking ahead right now. No, but so that's what makes me think, what's the point that you actually thought we might actually lose this game? Because I think early fourth quarter, even though it's like 14-13 at that point, it still doesn't feel like Tennessee, especially once Taylor Green got hurt, doesn't feel like Tennessee's going to lose this game. What's the point that you're like, oh shit, we might lose this?
It's one of those, I think that final drive that Arkansas had where I thought they were going to run out the clock and then just kick the game winner, where those two big runs from Braylon Russell, the second one where I was like, oh, that's the one thing that couldn't happen, because Tennessee has just been so good at rush defense all season long. I thought even with this backup quarterback, they're just not going to be able to move the ball. He's not going to be able to throw the ball downfield. He's not going to be able to convert. I did not think Tennessee was going to get gashed twice in the ground to put Arkansas in field goal range on Arkansas's final offensive possession. That's when I was like, oh, but they had a backup kicker, like, because their kicker gets hurt in this game. So yeah. I looked at that where I'm like, I wonder if you could do it all over again. If you're Heupel, do you just roll with seeing if this kicker is going to live up to this moment, the backup kicker who's coming in cold and winning the game? Do you want to go down that way? I understand you want to go down with your offense, but as you saw, that did not pay off either. And then if you're going to let him run in, then give him more time. Like, we had a couple defensive plays of stopping Arkansas before you O-laid and let them get in there. So I don't know. I think up until the end, like you said when I was texting you, I thought the way this Tennessee season has been going and how Tennessee played in the second half and how strong and elite this Tennessee defense is, especially with Taylor Green going out. I was like, Tennessee's going to escape, and then you flush this game and just keep moving on. When you see all the upsets around college football, you just take it and fix it, just flush it and move on. But at that point, even when they went in, I think I'll say that when I really thought Tennessee was going to lose was when Tennessee burned the extra time on the clock when they got into after the big play to Squirrel. Or was it Thornton? I don't even remember now off the top of my head. Like, there's so much is scrambled here. But downfield to get Nico's best throw of the night. And just that clock management down the stretch.
Thornton,
yeah, that was when I was like, oh, they're running out of time. They're really flabbergasted. This doesn't feel comfortable. I don't like any of this.
That's like 33-yard line.
Yeah, that's when I was like, I don't think
25-yard line with like 30 seconds left.
Yes, and when they go from 30 to, what does the clock drop to in that one?
So I don't even know when you're looking at it. Is that the time when they're
35? Yeah, here it is.
Play ends, but
there's 35. He had a timeout.
Seconds on that first down.
So he burns 8. So look, this is what I'm talking about. So from 3rd and 2, where Nico hits Thornton for 42 yards, they get to the Arkansas 25. That's at 35 seconds, and then they next miss Miles Kisman, that one I said on the left-hand side, but that was with 17 seconds. So you burn 18 seconds between the Thornton catch and the incompletion to Kitzelman. So then the fumble happens after, and Dylan Sampson luckily catches it, runs it. You have to burn a timeout there.
Yeah.
But you could have just called a timeout after that first down to Thornton and been at the 35-second mark and got set up.
Did they have a timeout left?
Yeah, they had 2.
So they would have still had one after the run play they didn't want to call, but happened.
They had 2. They had to call one after the run play that happened, and then they had one more.
Yes, I think that was it's easy to second guess that in hindsight, especially because
that's not second guessing. That was bad clock management. At 35 seconds to let it go down to 18, like burning 18 seconds like that was crazy.
No, you're right there. I'm rewinding to the letting them score. Like, it's easy to second guess that because like the college kicker thing, you know, and they got a backup. Who knows? Crazy things can happen. And this Tennessee like kind of make them put it in the end zone, but it's just it's easier to go down like with a fighting chance, like with a punch, you know, like you get the ball back with 1:17, like 2 timeouts, like that's enough time to put together a touchdown drive wins it. You know, you don't even have to, it's not about a touchdown to tie or go to force overtime. Like a touchdown wins it at the end. So I think that's big. Unfortunately, it obviously didn't work out for Tennessee. You mentioned the road, the road thing, road woes, I guess, for Josh Heupel. I'm starting to wonder if that's a thing you should be concerned about. 3-6 in the last 9 road games for Tennessee, and not all of those. Like, there's a Bama and Georgia in there, but you know, they're also one of those wins is Vanderbilt. So it's like not all of those are the best teams in the country that they're losing to. Like, one of those is Florida from a year ago, South Carolina in 2022. So I wonder if that's concerning, if how this offense goes on the road. You know, I mean, we've seen this offense doesn't compare to the 22 offense, but you saw, you know, what happened that year. So maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just is what it is. But I think the number one thing I feel like I have to talk about after this game is Nico, because there was just so much made of this guy this offseason and being generational and all that. And I felt like we just need to like just take it easy, like let this guy come along. I think I was watching this game last night, and I've heard people after the fact talk about like Tennessee being too conservative in the first half. But I think since we all know Josh Heupel, and we know Josh Heupel knows this offense a hell of a lot better than we do, I think we need to read in between the lines there. And it felt like Tennessee was calling plays because they have an inexperienced quarterback that they don't necessarily trust in a hostile environment. You know, obviously they want to run first, and they're one of the best running teams in the country, but it did feel conservative at times. And I wonder if it's maybe they just don't trust Nico to this point.
I mean, maybe, but I think all of this is moot if the offensive line doesn't get figured out. If Lance Hurd and John Campbell and the tackles do not drastically improve and get more comfortable and situated, and they don't solve that, none of this matters. Like, he has 8 sacks in 2 weeks on the road. Like, he's been hit a bunch. And if you're not getting any time in pass pro, and that's why you went in a shell. Heupel that was the thing last week or 2 weeks ago in Oklahoma. It's like we went into a shell and we went super conservative in the second half because our defense was leading the charge, and Campbell isn't available. Lance Hurd didn't make the trip, and you're on your 3rd and 4th string tackles, and you're not going to keep getting Nico killed. So you just run it, but that works when Dylan Sampson and Deshaun Bishop and company, and you're able to run the ball at will, which Tennessee's been able to do all year long, and they weren't able to do that against Arkansas's front outside of Dylan Sampson for a little bit in the second half. But Deshaun Bishop had his first game where he was not a big factor, and the run game really wasn't there for most of this game for Tennessee. But I think part of it, again, Nico, this is his second road SEC start. He's a redshirt freshman. He's still learning. But I think Nico, it's just going to take time. And part of it is unfortunate because Tennessee's kind of ahead of schedule where you're in the top 4. You are expected to win now. You have college football playoff aspirations. Like, you have one of the best defenses in college football. There's just, you have the 4th best Heisman odds coming into the game. I think there's just a lot on Nico right now. And again, Nico did not have a good football game on Saturday, but that doesn't mean we're not going to see a much better Nico on Saturday against Florida and then Bama the next week. Like, there's still so much in front of good football, I think, still potentially in front of Nico, that Tennessee's schedule was just so weird to start off here, where as a redshirt freshman quarterback, it didn't help him get acclimated and build confidence to get ready for these road SEC environments. His first 2 games, the Tennessee franchise or the Tennessee school starting quarterback, were on the road in the SEC. And then he has to go to Charlotte against a then top 25 NC State team. He has not played an important game inside Neyland Stadium yet. And Neyland Stadium is a huge weapon in playing at home. You saw the difference. You see Georgia at home. You see everybody, like you see Bama at home against Georgia versus Bama on the road at Vanderbilt. Like, there is something to be said about playing at home. for so many of these schools and the comfortability that it brings for a lot of these quarterbacks, especially younger quarterbacks who are getting acclimated, getting comfortable in the system, getting more comfortable being a college quarterback, that like, I think it's just easy to overlook all of that with Nico because it feels like he's been around forever. He got to sit behind Joe last year, and Bryce Young won the Heisman as a redshirt freshman in Alabama. But I just look at it. I think Manziel won as a redshirt freshman too at A&M, but that's rare. And I think you just have to look at it as like those are kind of more the outliers. And it would have been nice if Tennessee had at least one SEC conference game at home that Nico got to get more comfortable playing in his home stadium, got to face some adversity at home before having to face adversity on the road in back-to-back games against some not terrible programs. It's not like they're not world beaters this year in the SEC, but it's not ideal for a quarterback as he's learning to start off his college starting quarterback career at 19 on the road in 2 SEC venues.
I'm glad you said that, sir, because that goes back to my main point, and I think this goes back to 2023. As soon as you realize Joe Milton wasn't the guy, Nico should have started at least 6 games last year. Like that last year should have been the year that he is his first year as a starting quarterback in the SEC, because I think this is the year to win now. I think this SEC Tennessee defense might be the best in the conference this year. Like, this defense is rowdy, and you look at this offense, and now the offense doesn't match up to the defense because you have an inexperienced guy at quarterback. I think if there's one thing I question about the Josh Heupel tenure to this point, I feel like we all knew Joe Milton was not that guy. Like, I know Tennessee's season wasn't actually over until they got blown out at Missouri, and that was late in the season. So like, that was their second conference loss, I want to say. But you saw the Florida game. Like, Joe Milton wasn't good. Like, in conference play, Joe Milton was not good for Tennessee. And maybe you don't just go to the true freshman quarterback, but you should be giving him at least the DJ Lagway, some sort of meaningful snaps as a freshman quarterback, because he is the heir apparent. That was the biggest thing I was worried about Nico coming into the year, is that all this is being put on him, and he's a first-year starting quarterback. And he has not gone on the road to Oklahoma, and he's not gone on the road to Arkansas. Like, and those, like you said, very good programs, not even close to the top of the SEC right now. So I personally thought that this Tennessee schedule kind of worked out well for an inexperienced quarterback, because you did have the neutral sited game, which maybe it's 60-40 NC State fans, but it's neutral site, a couple of cupcakes early on. And then, you're going to Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's preseason, 8th, 9th in the conference. Go at Arkansas. They felt like kind of like Georgia had a year ago with Carson Beck. Like, it kind of progressed kind of gradually as you went on the road at Auburn early, but Auburn wasn't a very good team. So you had the hostile environment, but not really versus a great team. The home game versus South Carolina, you had some of those games early that like weren't against the best competition, and Georgia didn't look the best early, and they kind of progressed as the season went along. That's the biggest thing. Like, I just question, Nico should have had more experience when 2024 started and they could hit the ground running. But with all that said, that doesn't mean that I think we learned from Alabama this week. That doesn't mean that this is what Tennessee is going to be every week in 2024. We've seen a lot of teams look like completely different teams week to week. So it'll be interesting moving forward. But I think there was this perception that we knew what the minimum we're going to get out of this Tennessee offense was. So once they get a good defense, it's a wrap. And I think we're seeing now that offense isn't necessarily the guarantee we thought it was.
No, there are a lot of question marks on offense. Saturday is a must win now. Like, you have to beat Florida. Like, you have Bama the week after. Like, it can get ugly in a hurry for Tennessee. So they have to get up off the mat. And again, being at home, it's a huge deal for Tennessee. They're just a completely different team at home. And I don't know. I just think it's going to be, I am so curious. This is probably one of the most intriguing, important games for Heupel in the 4 years he's been the head coach. The fan base is very, very nervous right now because you lay this egg, you're thinking playoff, the playoffs right in front of you, you have an 80% CFP chance coming into this game. And now there's question marks. Now you have to split Bama and Georgia to make the CFP. There's a lot more pressure on Tennessee now. And again, you have 4 straight home games now. That's good. Georgia in mid-November on the road, but you get UTEP at home, and then you go to Vanderbilt, which is going to be more difficult than we thought coming into the year. But still, you should beat Vanderbilt. You're Tennessee. You should beat Vanderbilt. Not worry about that. So that being said,
I'm not worried about Vanderbilt. Put it on the bulletin board right now.
I'm not worried. If you're worried about Vanderbilt in year 4, then Tennessee's got real problems. Tennessee's got problems. It's year 1 for DeBoer. Saban lost his first year against Yale Monroe. His first year at Alabama. Kirby lost.
Those are very different things.
I'm just saying
DeBoer's not inheriting the programs that Saban and Kirby inherited.
Didn't Kirby lose to Vanderbilt? Who did he lose to? Early?
Yeah, he lost to Vanderbilt year 1.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I just don't. Year 1 you get a pass. Year 4 you lose to Vanderbilt. I don't care what Vanderbilt looks like. This just you can't happen. All that being said, Saturday is the huge one where I am willing to toss this game out as the ultimate stink bomb because Tennessee has done this at least once the last 2 years. Even the 11-2 year they did this against South Carolina. I'm willing to do that, but I am so curious how Saturday goes against Florida. The line goes down to I think 16.5 now, but there's a lot of it's going to be a tight week in Knoxville. There's going to be a lot of nervous energy around this program all week. And I don't know. I'm very, very curious to see how they respond on Saturday because I think it's an inflection point for the program in this season is how Tennessee responds will tell me a lot with whether or not Tennessee is ultimately a CFP team and can bounce back and get up off the mat and are just able to turn the page on that performance, or they let it linger and they drop a tough home game to a Florida team that they are a lot better than, and they should beat by multiple touchdowns at home. So we'll learn a lot about Tennessee on Saturday night in Knoxville, sir.
Yeah, it feels like not necessarily a must win, but a can't lose.
Yes.
Which is the same thing, but it feels different.
Switching gears here, man. We went long on Tennessee, Arkansas, but it's okay. Let's move.
You get that out, It's you gotta move on, get past it.
We do. 31-13, Georgia beats Auburn. My lock of the week was Auburn covering. Never a doubt, Matt Green. What say you to Kirby Smart going after the fans for the second time in 3 seasons?
What are you talking about? Never a doubt. This was what?
21.5, right?
20. Yeah, I think it was 24 when by the time we were picking it. I think it was 22 by the time of the games.
Yeah, it was a lock.
Happened, but I mean, this was very close to being a 35-10 or something like that. But no, I think this game. I noticed you said survives on our show sheet here. This 31-13 beatdown is just surviving.
Are we calling this a beatdown?
No, it wasn't. It didn't feel like a beatdown, but it's just kind of this boa constrictor thing that Georgia kind of does to teams and that they're just better than. And yeah, the offense, I feel like, it didn't look amazing, but it's also, you look up at the end of the game and you're beating one of your biggest rivals by 3 touchdowns. So I think when you have 5 of the top 11 teams in the country losing to unranked opponents, when Georgia's winning by 3 touchdowns, you're feeling pretty good. That changes perspective a little bit. I think Georgia's also just judged with a different lens. This defense is giving up too much, more than they want, right? What did Auburn have? 137 yards on the ground. They're not as good as 2021, 2022 defenses, but luckily they don't have to play the 2021 or 2022 Georgia team. They can still be the best team in the country and not have the dominant defensive lines that those teams had. I have my questions that they're the best team in the country. They don't necessarily look like it right now, but I mean, this team, they did give up a good bit on the ground, but they still give up 13 points, right? Peyton Thorne. I mean, this offense looked pretty explosive. Like you were talking about going into this game against Oklahoma the week before, there was a reason you were kind of expecting Auburn to look a little better. You thought they were trending in the right direction offensively, and Georgia just, they just put a stop to it. Once again, that's 8 straight games now between Georgia and Auburn that have been played in the Peach State where Auburn has not scored more than 1 touchdown. So this is just it's hard to call a game close when the opponent can't score, and it felt like Auburn would just never really challenge Georgia that much in this game. Early in the second half, you had it felt more like a busted assignment more than like Georgia getting run on. Like that's what, like maybe that's just from a biased Georgia perspective. Like you're getting run on is getting run on, but when a guy breaks loose, sometimes it feels like, oh, that's some bust assignment miscommunication. That's what that long run from Jacquez Hunter, the 40-yard touchdown run, that seemed more uncharacteristic for the most of the game. So Auburn obviously had success running the ball, but that made it 14-10 early in the third quarter, and then Georgia goes right back down and makes it 21-10, and the game is never really any closer than that. So I think this Georgia offense still feels a little bland, like a little something to be desired. But I mean, this is what we're talking about during a 31-13 win, right? So it's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting too is Georgia, I think, is kind of like Tennessee, where their best player is their running back. I think Trevor Etienne, watching that game, is just far and away Georgia's best offensive player.
I think Georgia has a lot of good playmakers. I think he's the only one that's different.
I mean, Georgia right now 61st in explosive play, in explosive plays nationally here coming out of this game. Auburn 17th still. So Auburn also, Peyton Thorne doesn't throw a pick. So I think that was part of the reason is they cleaned up the turnover issues on the road in Athens. I don't know. Like, it's kind of like what you said. I never thought Auburn was going to win that football game. It never felt like Auburn was going to win that football game. Georgia did what they had to do. The defense was good, but I don't know. I don't know what to think of Georgia still, because I think the last 3 weeks, like, you had the good second half surge against Alabama with that defense or that offense. But I said coming out, I'm like, I think people are going to overreact that Georgia's offense has figured it all out, and they're going to be one of the 5 best scoring offenses, and they're going to start torching teams like years of old. I just don't think that's going to happen. You saw Brock Bowers doing some crazy stuff in the NFL today, and I think Lawson Lucky is turning into a dude, and I think that's going to become more and more of a thing. You saw Nate Frazier return. Nate Frazier's back, which is huge for Georgia, I think, at running back. But I don't know. I just don't think Georgia's offense is going to be one of college football's best still. Like, I just look at it, like, I think it's going to be solid, but I don't think it's going to be special. And maybe you don't need to be special to win it all, but it just, I don't know. It still feels fine. The defense is still elite, but I don't know. The offense just leaves something to be desired. And I don't know if that they have the guys this year to make you not feel like that. And I think part of that is just because you thought Carson Beck was good enough as the potential number 1 overall pick next year that he would elevate all of these guys around him to a different level. But I just don't think that's coming this year. Do you?
It's hard to say. Like, I don't think the 40 points per game like that we saw from this team a year ago, I don't think we're going to see that. But I still think Carson Beck is one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and he looked a lot sharper in this game. One thing that I think is kind of being overlooked, because Georgia's gotten run on and kind of who they've played so far this year with Kentucky and now with Auburn and probably even Clemson a little bit, but obviously Clemson didn't have very much success offensively versus Georgia. Auburn and Kentucky both had a lot of success running between the 20s. And so you've seen teams sustain a lot of drives against Georgia, and this offense just simply isn't getting a lot of possessions. Like, I think in the second half of this game, Georgia had the ball 4 times, and they scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal on those 4 drives until the one at the very end of the game where the ball game's over. So, and then they scored a touchdown on their last drive of the first half. So, I mean, they had from the final 2 minutes of the first half to the end till when they're kneeing the ball at the end of the game, they had 5 possessions and they scored 4 touchdowns on those. So, or scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal on those. So the offense is still efficient. So it's hard to say that like they're not, that like there's a problem with the offense. It just doesn't feel explosive. They're not getting the chunk plays like they were getting a lot with Bowers and with McConkey a year ago. But I think you have a baller in the backfield in Trevor Etienne, and you saw Nate Frazier in the opener, and for whatever reason haven't seen him since. I don't know if this guy's been in the doghouse or what, but Branson Robinson got 8 carries in this game. Nate Frazier got 7 carries, and it's completely different when Nate Frazier touches the ball. So I think with those 2 in the backfield, Georgia should have a good running game. We've still not really seen a dominant running game. This offensive line, we saw Bobo get the start at center in this one. So Jared Wilson, he got hurt in the Alabama game, but came back in. So I guess he wasn't good to go for this one. So, that's a little bit of a concern. And obviously Tate Ratledge is already out for a few weeks, maybe like a month or so. So, this offensive line doesn't look as dominant as we kind of expected, but I don't know. We just all have to kind of temper our expectations that, like right now, this doesn't look like the number one team in college football, but they just beat Auburn 31-13, right? Like it wasn't the prettiest game, but you took care of business, and there was no drama down the stretch in the fourth quarter or anything like that. So, I mean, I think this Georgia secondary, I'm a little concerned about that. Like Dalen Everett, expecting a little bit of a step up from that dude as a second-year starter at corner. Like we saw a guy like a Tyson Campbell as a freshman start and just get picked on, and then by year 2, he's a lockdown corner on the other side. It just kind of seems like you got a lot of the times under Georgia, you have the experienced corner on one side and the first-year starter on the other. And the first-year starter is the one that gets picked on, and he turns out to be a really good player in his own right a couple years down the road. I'm not sure Dalen Everett is that guy, to be honest, right now. So Georgia's corners look like they might be a little suspect, but and they've been run on a little bit to the outside. But with that said, as disappointing as they've looked like from a Georgia perspective, they're being judged as being the number one defense in America. So, and you come in, it's like you're just looking for reasons why this isn't the number one defense in America, right? So they're still really damn good, and they're giving up I guess the Alabama threw up the average there a little bit, but they're still giving up not very many points per game. And outside of that Alabama game, no one else has scored more than a touchdown on them. I guess Auburn's the only one to score a touchdown on them, right? Besides Alabama. So I think this defense, while it might not be the best in the country, I think it's still good. And, it's young too, and they could get better week to week.
Yeah, I mean, they're 57th in yards per attempt given up from quarterbacks through the year. Who's number 1? Texas. Do you feel good? Do you think Texas is better than Georgia right now? Do you think Georgia can beat Texas and Ole Miss, or no?
Yeah, I think Georgia definitely can beat both of those teams. I think Texas is a team that we still just have a lot of questions about. Like, I think they're a really good team. I think if I'm making my top 25 today, I probably have them number 1. But I mean, what's the best win? At Michigan? Yeah. Is Michigan good at all? Like, they're 5 weeks in.
I think it would be less of an impressive win if it wasn't at Michigan. I think going in the big house and dominating like that, I think is more impressive. As you've seen, like dominating on the road is just more impressive.
No, it definitely is. And especially early in the season, like when before a team has a loss, the atmosphere is a little rowdier. Yeah. No, Texas looks really, really good. But I think, Oklahoma is going to be the best team they've played so far. I think. Yeah. Up here, is that coming up? Is that this week?
That's
Texas, Oklahoma.
Yeah, this weekend is just loaded. This weekend,
Red River Shootout, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So I think we'll learn a lot. I think Oklahoma is better than Michigan right now today. So I don't know. I still have my questions based on the competition level, but I don't think that Georgia has any reason to think they can't beat anyone in college football. They don't look head and shoulders better than everyone in college football, but I think we're seeing, like we saw this past week, there's a lot of parity at the top of college football. At the top of college football right now.
What's wrong with Georgia fans though? Kirby just can't, like, he all he wants you guys is to make some noise, to some sort of home field advantage, and you can't do it for him. It's been twice now in 3 years that Georgia fans just do not get up. Like, what I saw, they're blaming the heat this Saturday. The fans were a little bit. I saw
this was
what's going on, Kurt? What's going on with Georgia fans, Matt? What's happening? This is not a complaint that Tennessee has to do. They have to issue when they are in Neyland Stadium. It's like, hey, can y'all get a little bit louder? This is not a Tennessee problem. So I'm familiar.
Now. First of all, Kirby Smart demands excellence, sir. So if the fans aren't carrying their weight, then Kirby's going to call them out. But this is the first time Kirby's ever said anything about the fans not being loud. So
no, he absolutely, Tennessee week, he told the fans to get up. He needs them.
Well, he said they got to get up, but he didn't say, I was disappointed last week.
Well, I mean, it was a preparation. He
said, yeah, we expect him to be loud. He said things like that before. Like, Tennessee's not the only time
it was pretty targeted. He was like, we need y'all to be not your normal selves. Is what that implied to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Maybe if they decrease the prices a little bit. Sanford Stadium, Kirby wants the common fan to be able to afford a ticket. Maybe that would help. And then, instead of that wine and cheese crowd that gets in there with those crazy expensive college football tickets these days. But No, I've heard. I did hear people.
Well, here's the quote, by the way. Here's what he tweeted: "Saturday, we need Dog Nation to affect the game. If you can talk when you leave, you didn't yell enough."
There you go.
I don't know. It seems pretty direct to me.
So what did he say? That was
we need y'all to affect the game.
That's you're talking 2022.
Yeah, that was the Tennessee week. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't say anything about like previously disappointed. He said in this statement this week it was like the first time he'd ever been disappointed by the Georgia fans. So it's a terrible look. This is not exclusive to Georgia. This is everywhere in college football. I had a friend text me about the TV timeouts and just the 2-minute warning and just all the injury timeouts that like it just kind of kills the vibe in the stadium. They were talking about how the stadium would get loud and then like the timeouts. I haven't been to a game yet this year, so I can't speak from experience. But I don't know. I as a fan watching at home, the 2-minute warning, I hate it, honestly. It's like it just feels like the longest timeout break of the whole game. Like we thought this was like, oh, it'll be more like the NFL, yada, yada, the competition. I don't know, whatever they said. It's like, no, this is another 5-minute ad break you wanted to squeeze in before halftime at the end of the fourth quarter when people are watching. Like, it's a money grab. We know what it is.
It does feel out of place, though. I thought it would feel more normal than it has. Like, I really don't. It catches me off guard every time. Yeah. Like, every Tennessee game or anything I'm watching, I'm like, what are we doing? Why is it not? And I'm like, oh, right. Because it's not really, they don't even call it the 2-minute warning. It's not really like treated as a big deal. The announcers don't prepare you for it. That we're coming up with a 2-minute warning, the 2-minute. I don't know. It's all very weird to me.
Yeah, I don't like it. So I've heard people talk about the timeouts, the TV timeouts in the games, but obviously no excuses. If the place isn't loud, it's not loud. Like Georgia fans gotta show up. But I mean that's rich people problems, I guess. You know.
Yeah. Matt Green, how did we do this weekend as we run through what happened the rest of this weekend in college football, week 6, sir?
So this week, it was a pretty solid week for both of us overall. I went 9-3 overall in the pick'em. You went 8-4, sir. Against the spread, however, I went 6-6. You went 5-7. So you're right there around 500 every week. So that's all you can ask for. So on the season, we are now tied overall 47-26. You have a 2-game lead on me against the spread. You're 31-41-1. I am 29-43-1. And Zeus is home dog of the week. Told you guys, wasn't on the pick'em, but I told you guys, watch out for those Badgers with the USC Trojans that come into town. And the Golden Gophers, sir, got it done.
You called them Badgers? What do you mean?
I said Badgers. Golden Gophers.
I was like, what's happening? I was like, what do you mean the Badgers? They blew it last week against the Trojans.
No, man. Apologies to the folks in Minnesota. Did not call you the Badgers. I know about Paul Bunyan's axe.
I know. The Gophers and the Badgers are very different animals, Matt Green.
Very different. Animals. Never seen a Badger myself, but I know it's very different than a Gopher. I guess I don't know if I've ever seen a Gopher.
There are a lot of Gophers here. We see Gophers, groundhogs all the time here in East Tennessee. Also rabbits. Like it blew my wife's mind when I first came, and I was like always just perplexed by how many rabbits just hop around East Tennessee all the time. Like there's just rabbits everywhere. I don't know about you, but I never saw rabbits growing up in Georgia. Like,
we get rabbits.
No, I'm talking about
get rabbits in our yard.
I'm talking about 3 rabbits when you go 3 houses down. You just see 3 rabbits hopping around a yard in the summer.
I don't know, maybe not. I don't count.
I'm saying like they're everywhere in the summer and spring, but it always blows my mind. Matt Green. So let's go to the stunner of the weekend. Vanderbilt stuns Alabama. You posited biggest upset ever. I'm going to go ahead and stop you right there. No, because Vanderbilt's offense is legitimately good. And Diego Pavia is a legitimately good college quarterback. So I'm going to stop you right there. But it is a humongous win for those Vanderbilt Commodores. And tough look for the Alabama. What does this eliminate by the transitive property Georgia from the college football playoff for losing to the team that lost to Vanderbilt? Like what does that do for the Georgia Bulldogs? I feel like that has to eliminate.
Actually had a Vanderbilt or a Bama fan text that to me today. Like you guys lost to the team that lost to Vanderbilt. Wow. Embarrassing. Kalen DeBoer, he just came in the SEC. He thought it was easy. Yes, week in, week out. Not so fast, my friend. This is going to be the biggest difference with Nick Saban and anyone else. It's just that get up every single week and play to your potential. Like that was just unheard of under the Alabama dynasty. That this is what happens. Everyone else, like they just have these weeks where they just lay an egg and get beat by somebody. This wasn't even fluky. Like Vanderbilt was 0-60 all time against top 5 teams coming to this game. But it obviously they were running everything they had in the playbook. Like if you want to call some of these plays fluky, sure. But they were just moving the ball consistently on them. And Alabama never led for 1 second in this entire game. It was just absurd. You saw it was 7-0 and you're like, wow, Georgia, we're down 28-0 and Vanderbilt goes up 7-0 on them. And you're like, now it's 13-0. Now it's whatever, 24-10 or whatever it was at one point. You're just like, what is happening right now? Time of possession, 42 minutes. Vanderbilt had the ball to just under 18 minutes for Alabama. 26-17, the first downs. They just moved the ball so much more consistently. Alabama obviously turned it over and had the pick 6. It was just, to me, this was the biggest upset in the history of college football. People want to throw out Boise State over Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. No, App State versus Michigan. That Michigan team was overrated being top 5 anyway. App State was a powerhouse at FCS. This is Alabama. We've seen Ohio State do this every couple years under Urban Meyer. You saw Lincoln Riley would have a game like this at Oklahoma where he just inexplicably loses to some unranked team. Alabama never does this. It's obviously not Nick Saban Alabama anymore, but they just beat Georgia, the number 1 team in the country a week ago, or number 2, wherever you had them. And then to lose to Vanderbilt doesn't beat anybody. This is not like Arkansas upsetting someone or even Northwestern upsetting someone. Vanderbilt never beats anybody. I know they're a better Vanderbilt, but to me, I've never been more shocked by a result in college football than I was by the. I don't know how many times I said this is unbelievable. I'm in disbelief last night. It was just insane.
I would have been a lot more shocked if it was Saban. If they'd gotten Saban, I've been a lot more shocked. That's why I don't really understand why they were playing the Saban stuff after the game of I don't even remember what the quote was. They were blasting that Saban said about playing at Vanderbilt or whatever. But it
he just said it wasn't. It was on game day recently, and he said every place is tough, but Vanderbilt.
Yeah, okay. Saban didn't coach in the game. Saban is still undefeated against Vanderbilt. What are we doing? I don't really understand. Vanderbilt celebrated, but I don't understand the Saban dig because Saban didn't lose this football game. This was Kalen DeBoer. But
is there any percent of joy from Saban?
No.
1% joy to be I would have never done anything like this?
No, I don't think so.
Saban had to be a little salty last week. That's every game I've played with Georgia was just a slugfest that just some go to overtime and all this. You're up 28-0. What the hell? What is happening right now?
I don't think so.
And then
I think he loves
see him
Bama.
lose to Vanderbilt. I don't know. He's got an ego. He might feel a little good about it.
I don't think so. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But I also, Diego Pavia is legitimately good. Also, it's amazing when teams do this. Why don't more Power 5, Power 2 schools really who have the money to do this? If your offense is broken, just go hire a staff of a good offense of a J5. What Vanderbilt did, Clark Lee was desperate, and you go and you're the offense hasn't worked here to this point. Our strategy's not working. Diego Pavia just went in with New Mexico State and won at Auburn this past year. He's pretty good. He's a lot of fun. And New Mexico State's one of the worst FBS programs in college football. They've been that for the majority of the 21st century. And they had success with Jerry Kill and Beck and Diego Pavia. And lo and behold, it's translated here. I still think it's going to be really hard for Vanderbilt to even go bowling with their schedule. But Diego Pavia had 20 carries here. He had 10 point something yards per attempt. Yeah, he was 16 to 20, 12.6 yards per attempt, 2 TDs, no picks, 252 yards to the air, 20 carries for 56 yards. He does it all. The dude was an absolute madman for Vanderbilt. Superstar, rock star type guy, Manziel type for the Commodores. And it just works. They just brought in a staff that knew how to coach offense and had figured something out at a small school. Just go do that. Some of these schools, if you're having problems with your offensive philosophy, this, that, and the other, just go do that. Just go to a smaller school and that's had success even against the P2 and be I think I'd like that. Let's just go hire them to run our offense and then bring in their quarterback and plug and play. Like, I wonder if that's something we see more of. Like, just go get I don't know, Boise's running all over people. It's like, hey, Auburn, don't ever think this. Just bring in the entire Boise State offense next year. Or you should have maybe just done that this offseason. Bring in Taylor Green. Bring in Ashton Jane. Just go ahead and do that or something. I don't know. That's just that's something that just crossed my mind as I was watching this happen. It's just kudos to Vanderbilt being like, we're going to do the Western Kentucky thing and just hire a bunch of guys from that. What was it? Who did they years ago? Do you remember when they had the best offense in college football, 2020? And they hired everybody from that small FCS school. It's where Incarnate Ward, where Cam Ward was. They had that whole staff, and they all were incredible for the Hilltoppers that year. But that's neither here nor there, Matt Green. But I think the biggest upset is just no, can't do it. Can't do it.
It's the most shocked I've ever been. If I was an Alabama fan, Malachi Moore would be like my new favorite player, because his tantrum at the end of the game, I feel like, was all Alabama fans. It was like, this is the guy. He's speaking for the whole fan base right now. He's throwing the tantrum and then kicks the ball after they spot it.
Did he throw his mouthpiece first too?
Middle. Yeah, through the mouthpiece. Like, he was for every he kicked the ball on the field. There was 1 in 4 Alabama fans out there punching a TV or breaking a wall or something. Like, I don't know how. No one expects to lose to Vanderbilt. You know, going up to Nashville is basically a party for an SEC fan base. You get to enjoy a little football game and then go hit Broadway. And that's not what happened here. That's just, especially the week after beating Georgia. That's probably what makes it the most shocking result. And just, it's Vanderbilt. Like, I know they might be better Vanderbilt, but it's still Vanderbilt.
Miami, I think, had the best comeback win and maybe best performance. People left him for dead. I've been preaching Miami as a real contender and the best team in the ACC, and they go to Cal, dig themselves a huge hole. Cam Moore is a tough beginning of this game, and then showed why he's the Heisman frontrunner in the second half, and bringing his team all the way back. And Miami stuns Cal late to survive and stay perfect. My question to you, though, Matt Green, I think they do. I think there is real, they are this year's Washington, TCU type, but with more talent than both of those schools. The last 2 years, I think they have that real possibility coming out of the ACC. Do you share that sentiment that they are right there and belong in the top 3, the big 3 undefeateds of Texas and Ohio State, or do you think they're on a separate tier right now?
Absolutely not. They're not even close to that tier right now. Cal was doing whatever they wanted in this game for about 2.5 quarters. Like, Cam Ward threw maybe the worst interception I've ever seen, watching from a good player, at least. Like, the stats say that was a 40-yard interception return for a touchdown. It might as well have been a 40-yard punt return for a touchdown. Like, just throwing across your body, just sailing the ball to the deep safety. Like, that was just terrible. And then you saw for the last quarter and a half, the dude looked like the best player in college football and just put the team on his back. Like, I already made the notes that 6 of the top 11 went down on Saturday, and 5 of them to unranked teams. But Miami found a way to escape that. Cal was averaging 9.9 yards per play going into the fourth quarter. It was just big play after big play. So Cam Ward put the team on his back, and it was an amazing performance. It was an amazing game just to watch the comeback. And I mean, even that, like, Michael Irvin on the sideline too, just living and dying with every big play. It was a fun game, but and the College Game Day, all the Cal Miami stuff was great. But I can't put them in that Texas Ohio State tier yet, because this is 2 weeks in a row now. I felt like the Virginia Tech game was kind of the wake-up call game, and that's kind of what I was predicting. And this big game atmosphere, they were just going to out-athlete Cal, and that's not what they did. They miraculously won this game, but I think this might be signs of things to come, that they're not just going to skip through this season and go 12-0 really easily. I think they're going to have to bring it week in and week out, even if it does look like a weaker ACC schedule. Like, this Cal team lost to Florida State a week ago, who's now 1-5 this year. And I mean, they were leading Miami wire to wire, and somehow, some way, Cam Ward and this team pulled it out at the end. But also some questionable calls on that final drive, if we're being honest, the targeting, and so I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But I think Miami, when I'm watching this, they escaped again. But I'm questioning them more and more week to week on if they're a true national title contender.
I don't know. I just think that offense is really good. I think they dug themselves in the hole. The important thing is win and survive, as you saw this weekend. Win and survive.
Absolutely.
And I think Cam Ward is the best quarterback in the country. Like, I think they're going to be right there, talent-wise, and in that ACC, the terrible ACC this year. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be a special year for Miami.
They're still a strong contender for that top 4 seed, for sure.
Yeah. I think they're in good shape. I would stay. I'm keeping all my Miami stock. Ole Miss.
Don't sell any of the Clemson stock yet if you got any left over, though, sir.
I sold it all a while ago.
Man,
there's no Clemson.
Well, buy it at a very low price, sir, because that's going to be the ACC championship, and I don't know that Miami's better than Clemson right now today.
We shall see, Matt Green. Ole Miss or Texas A&M. Who are you a bigger one-loss SEC team believer right now, based on what you saw from both of them with big wins on Saturday?
I would say to this point, Ole Miss still hasn't beaten anybody. A&M's putting together a pretty quality resume. Like, the early loss to Notre Dame at home, like, say what you want about it. Like, first game of the Mike Elko era, like, that's fine. But, I mean, Arkansas appears to be a pretty solid team, and they just beat Arkansas a week ago. Now they, obviously, Florida's looking a little better. They dominated Florida in the Swamp a couple weeks ago. Not saying that's a good win by any means, but, I mean, Missouri, as I think I was one of the bigger Missouri critics coming into the season, but they're still a top 25 team. They're still a good win, and they absolutely dominated. 8.8 yards per play in this game, 236 to 68 on the ground. We finally got the version of Connor Wegman we expected to see. Like, I'm still not sure about Ole Miss. Like, Ole Miss dominated this game against South Carolina. It kind of felt like that Georgia Auburn domination. Like, going on the road it's you're taking care of business. So I'm not saying it's like equal or anything, but like it didn't feel fun in terms of like dominant. It was just like the score was never really close, but I don't know. Like, it was just kind of sloppy at times, or just kind of boring at times. Lack of a better term. Ole Miss, I'm just still not sure that they're this explosive team they thought they were. The defense looked really good this week. But right now, I feel like Texas A&M looks like the better team. Like, this defense is solid, and if Connor Wegman is the guy we think he's going to be with this running game, like, this offense, they could beat a lot more people. I mean, I don't know how many people were starting to talk about if Texas and Texas A&M are both one-loss teams at the end of the season. I'm not going that far. I'd have to look at A&M's schedule to this point, but or moving forward. But, I mean, they look really good right now. And Ole Miss, I just still don't know. Jackson Dart, he feels more and more like Matt Corral to me. They feel like the same person. He's fine, but is he a upper echelon college quarterback? I'm not really sure that he is. I think he's solid, and he makes some plays. He's got plus athleticism. It's not great. Good, not great. I feel like he seems good, not great.
I don't know what to like. I think A&M's going to have some weird losses here too. I think that A&M deserves credit for how they've handled the Marcel Reed and Connor Wegman quarterback. Just kind of not kerfuffle, but question mark after Wegman's injury, and then he comes back and he was solid. A&M is just aggressively normal, and I think that's just a really good spot to be in if you're an A&M fan, because you're going to recruit well. You just are. I don't know if Elko gets to that final point. I like Mike Elko a lot. But if you're an A&M fan, I think you just have to be thrilled with the start, because it's just normal. Like, this is just a normal, good football team. They look like a competent team with more a great defense and more offensive juice than a Kentucky. Like, they kind of look like Kentucky in some ways. But I think they are going to have more offensive firepower. I think Colin Klein's a really good OC, and
you know what they're doing? It's like when Brian Kelly went to LSU. This is what was supposed to happen. He was supposed to like get rid of the drama and like, let's just be normal and achieve like to the level of talent we have on this roster. I think he's actually doing it in year one.
Yeah. Ole Miss, I have no idea. I'm just going to say I have no idea what to make of Ole Miss. Like the last 2 weeks are completely different teams, and I'm not going to pretend to have any read on Ole Miss the rest of the season. I got both wrong in the last 2 weeks on them. I don't know what to make of Ole Miss. I'm staying away. They're the ultimate stay away team. Matt Green is the Ole Miss Rebels in the SEC.
Yeah, I know what you mean. South Carolina is just one of those teams. I don't know what to make of week to week. Like I don't feel like Lenore Sellers. He obviously played in this.
They have the worst offensive line in football. They have the worst
I don't
offensive
feel like
line.
He was exactly. So Ole Miss 27-3, good performance, especially to bounce back. But I just still have more questions about him.
Final thing here, as we wrap up this week 6 recap show, Matt Green, Minnesota over USC. You're all in on this game. You're a diehard Golden Gopher fan. Many forget this, but you were adamant. I have to talk about this. And you have a boomer segment in terms of what happened in Minnesota USC. I have no idea where this is going. You were all locked in here. What say you, Matt Green?
Well, this is just a great game. This is home dog of the week, so I had to have a special eye on it. But it felt like a classic, just Big Ten game. Like USC feels like they already became a Big Ten team, and they're just having these like 17-17 games with people, and they're playing physical. But no, this was just a great game. A lot of drama at the end. I thought PJ Fleck had one of the calls of the year in this game. 17-17 tie ball game with a minute left, 4th and goal on the 1 yard line. You could kick the field goal there and just leave it up to the defense, but you go for it, pick up the touchdown, almost fumbled. They were reviewing that for like 10 minutes, I swear, to see if he fumbled at the end, but got the touchdown, just massive. And then the interception from the true freshman, Coy Parrish, number 1 player in the state of Minnesota, only top 100 player from the state of Minnesota last year. Makes the interception, just one of the plays of the year. I don't know if you saw this pick in the end zone, just rose up in traffic, and made the play. But it was an amazing moment. I was rooting for the Golden Gophers there to get it done. But here's my boomer take. All right, I'm going to go full boomer on you, sir. On this final drive, Minnesota got it when USC got the ball back down 7. Minnesota broke up a pass, and it was going to bring up a 3rd and 10, like on the original like series of the drive. Like they get gone 3 and out, right? Or 4 and out. They're obviously going to go for it on 4th down. Like 45 seconds left in this game. Break up a pass, going to be 3rd and 10. Big time situation. Guy gets a 15-yard penalty because he pulls up his jersey as if to show that he's got a gun in his waistband.
I thought it was a sword.
No, sometimes the guys tuck the strap or whatever the sword, and he like raised up his jersey, like I'm carrying, and got a 15-yard penalty.
I thought it was carrying a sword situation though. I still thought it was sword related.
You could be right, but we saw Dylan Stewart in the South Carolina game with Jackson Dart. Like, what's with the gun celebrations? Like, this is my boomer take. Like, am I missing something that's currently happening in the rap game? That's like everyone's doing. Is there like a gun dance that's happening right now? Like, I'm just seeing this on the NFL, and like every other time a guy breaks up a pass, it seems like we saw. I'm blanking on the receiver for LSU. In the opener for LS versus USC, get the penalty for it.
Was that Lacey?
Yeah, Lacey. And explain to his teammates, I don't know what I was just doing this. I don't know. I barely raised my voice. But I don't know what it is, but I'm seeing way more of the gun celebrations, and it feels like they're getting penalized like just about every time. Like, what are we doing, guys? Can we ease back on the gun celebrations?
The Stewart one was wild. And then really? Jackson Dart.
And did he get flagged for that?
Yeah, he got flagged.
Okay.
But it was also, you're down. I think they were down 3 touchdowns at the time. Like,
that's true, yeah.
I mean, no, you can't do that. But also, Jackson Dart quote tweeted it after the game because it was after a sack or a hit on Jackson Dart. And he quote tweeted and said, quote, "How TF you miss a whole 100 shots?" And with Dolph, young Dolph being a rapper. So Jackson Dart had fun with it after too, because Ole Miss won the game. So yeah, it's not good. Stop getting celebration stuff. It's just no penalties. Like what are we doing? You don't need to be doing all that. Doing too much.
For sure. And I will say on the college football officiating, I feel like has gotten a lot of a bad rep. I would say so far in 2024. One thing, I don't know if it's been an initiative or something, but the borderline stuff on the sideline, like the borderline late hits, I'm seeing so few of those called in 2024, and it's amazing to me. Like these guys running full speed, like just trying to get every inch they can, try to stop the offense from getting every inch they can. Like, okay, he hit him a tenth of a second later than he was supposed to, like 2 yards out of bounds. Like you're seeing a lot less of that. Just kind of, okay, it was borderline on the sideline. Let him play. Nothing unnecessarily rough about it. It's football. That's one thing I'll compliment the refereeing I've seen so far through 6 weeks.
All right, Matt Green. Well, that's all I've got. Anything you want to add before we close the book on week 6 before the biggest college football week of the season? Yeah, this was the most upsets and craziness, but I think week 7 here, a plethora of gigantic games here. Oregon, Ohio State this week, Texas, Oklahoma. What are some of the other, like there's some.
Yeah, this was the week that everyone circled, this October 12th weekend before the season starts. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much to talk about. Like, it's funny when we were going over all these, we didn't even talk about all the top 11 upsets. I don't think we mentioned Michigan losing to Washington. I saw
it just didn't feel like an upset.
I saw it. I was like, wait, Michigan was number 10. Like they don't feel like number 10 at all. So I think that's it. That's why it didn't feel like an upset. And Alex Orji got benched in that one. I'm not sure where the floor is on this 2024 Michigan team, to be honest.
That's fair. I mean, it's just going to be like, folks, strap in. Like this is the worst pumpkin patch weekend possible with the fam is this Saturday. Like you're gonna have to be locked in this whole weekend. I'm actually kind of sad that Tennessee's playing Florida at night, because I mean, look, you've got Alabama, South Carolina at noon. You've got Iowa hosting Washington at noon. Those are the big ones. No.
And they moved the Red River Shootout to 3:30. I'm not even an Oklahoma, Texas fan, and I'm outraged by that. That's a high noon.
Yeah, I don't like it because now the high noon stuff stinks when you really look at it. Like there's not a lot of great high noon stuff I'm looking at here. But
Texas, Oklahoma is just, it's like every other year it's game day and the crew is in the stadium.
Yeah, I don't like it.
And Corso's
because we lost Big Noon. Here's what's happened. We lost Big Noon. We lost the immediate gust to Joel Klatt for Texas, Oklahoma at noon. Now we have to get it on ABC at 3:30. I don't know, but that's also Penn State at USC. It's going to be awesome. That's a big one. You got, let's see here, Arizona at BYU.
That'll be one of the few Gary Danielson, Brad Nessler games I've even watched so far this year. 3:30 CBS doesn't hit like it used to.
Ole Miss and LSU 7:30, or like I hate that Florida is playing Tennessee at 7:30, like at 7:00 this weekend, because Ohio State, Oregon at the same time, LSU, Ole Miss at the same time.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I feel like that should be in that news.
Kansas State at Colorado at 10:15. That's like for the Big 12 crown right now.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. It'll be a long day of some foosball.
There you go. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I will talk to you in a couple days.
Yes, nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.